World Athletics is enforcing sex testing for all women. And also worth noting, World Athletics has already banned all trans women, full stop, from all their sports. So this isn't even specifically about trans people, but this is exactly what we've been saying would happen. The purity tests on what a real woman is has left the realm of just attacking trans people and is now coming after intersex people and just women in general. There is maybe this idea in the public that a sex test is like they just put a cotton bud in your mouth and then they run it through the sex machine and then it just says, ping, you were born with a vagina, or ping, you were born with a penis. And that's it. Sort people into two easy boxes. What's all the fuss about? All this is going to do is like sniff out the trans people who are trying to run a race, dare to enter park run or something. But that isn't how it works at all. That's not how biology works at all. We actually had these sex tests before in the past. I think it was from the 60s until like 2008 or something. And they were a complete disaster. They didn't work. They ruined a bunch of people's lives. And they dropped them because they just don't work. They used to have them for the Olympics. The Olympics doesn't currently have them. Though the Olympics just had a vote on a new head of the Olympic Commission, and they voted in someone who has flagged some kind of gender critical sympathies. We'll see how bad it is. But one of the guys who could have been the head of the Olympic Commission is Sebastian Coe, who is the head of World Athletics, and he is hardline anti-trans and intersex to an insane degree. So it's good that he's not in charge of the Olympics, but he is in charge of this body, and that's why they're doing this thing. So I just wanted to read out a couple of examples, because I think this is a good way of communicating why these things are terrible, and they're stories you might not have heard of. So I don't know if I'm going to read all of this. Maybe I will, but like, there's a couple of stories here which are just horrific, and these are exactly the kind of things that are going to happen from sex testing. Because when you do sex testing, there is no one flag which says whether someone is male or female, because that isn't how biology works. There's a whole complicated mess of things going on. There's like, people often split it into things like chromosomes, genitals, gonads, etc. But even then, within chromosomes, within DNA, there isn't just one thing. You don't just zoom in and see two X's or see an X and a Y. Like, those are labels for parts of your DNA, which generally appear in most people. But even within those chromosomes, they have bits which do loads of complicated stuff. And sometimes you get someone who has a Y chromosome, but doesn't do what most Y chromosomes do, and they are just born cis women. And sometimes you have someone without a Y chromosome, and they've got a bunch of other genes which cause them to develop into a man. And like, already that is very complicated. But then on top of those things, if you might just have typical XY chromosomes or stuff. But if you're doing a sport which benefits from like male puberty and you haven't been through it, then you don't have the benefits of male puberty. The chromosomes themselves don't do anything. Like, they don't, they are themselves, like, as you run, it's not like the chromosomes themselves are generating power and making you strong or whatever. It's the chromosomes and the aspects within them, individual genes, which are sometimes expressed and sometimes not, contribute to your development in the womb, which then creates things like your gonads, which when you get to the age of puberty, then create hormones, which the hormones then cause various parts of your body, like your bones, your muscles, your tendons, to grow in certain ways, and they are the things which cause athletic advantages based on biology, or not. And during that whole process, it's not just a cascade. It's not just if A happens, then B happens. If B happens, C happens. And if C happens, D happens. That is not. It's like there's this whole mess, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. If at least 16 of those things, then it's probably going to go this way, but some of this can contribute to these other things, and crazy mess of stuff going on. But so that's why these like binary just take a swab from someone's mouth tests just cannot work. But like, we don't just need to take my word from it. If you don't understand biology and you're like, that's actually way more simple, Katie's an idiot. Let's just read these stories from some of these women who have been affected by it. So here it says, from 1968 to 2000, women's athletes had to undergo genetic testing. From its inception, medical experts questioned the ethics and efficacy of the policy. As an athlete, I believe it added an obstacle to the already demanding course that women had to take to participate in sport. So this is Maria Jose Martinez-Patiño, who's Spanish. She was a national champion hurdler, and she was around when they had to do sex tests. So she says, I was born and raised in northern Spain. I had a life of a normal girl, except I had an affinity for running and jumping, which is something, get this, that some girls like to do. I excelled in athletics and competed at national level, but only because of a concentrated effort and training. I was overjoyed to be able to participate in the 1983 World Track and Field Championships in Helsinki. There I passed my first sex test and was given a certificate of femininity. What a disgusting title. Certificate of femininity. Like, oh, you're sufficiently feminine enough. Anyway, that isn't the problem we're talking about. That is a problem. We're not talking about that now. In 1985, I went to the World University Games in Kobe, Japan. Unfortunately, I forgot my certificate, and my smear test for 2 X chromosomes had to be repeated. Later that day, our team doctor told me, in front of the teammates I sat with the night before, that there was a problem with my result. At the hospital the next day, I learned that a sophisticated karyotype analysis would be undertaken and that the results would take months to reach my sports federation in Spain. I would be unable to compete in that day's race. Okay, already this is a problem. If you need, to carry this certificate of femininity around and you don't have the certificate and you have to do the test, at least in the 60s or 80s or whenever this is, it took a long time. Even now, you might be like, oh, well, the test is much quicker now. For sure. But you still have to have access to it. What happens if you're running in a race and they don't have a lab to test these things right nearby? You might have to miss out a race. Even that on its own is already bullshit, because she's already got a certificate. She was born a girl. She should be able to compete. Anyway, I'm not saying, by the way, that trans women shouldn't be able to compete. They should, based on certain conditions. Anyway, our team doctor advised me to consult with a specialist when I got home and urged me in the meantime to fake an injury so no one would suspect anything untowards. I was shocked, but I did as I was told. I sat watching my teammates, wondering how my body differed from theirs. I spent the rest of the week in my room feeling sadness that I could not share. My mind spun. Did I have AIDS or leukemia, the disease that had killed my brother? Back in Spain, I began trying to come to terms with what was happening. Growing up, neither my family nor I had any idea I was anything other than normal. I went to the best doctors. I attended all the appointments alone, however, because I hadn't had the heart to tell my parents something was wrong. They were still grieving my brother. And because my federation was at a loss about what to do until the karyotype result came through, 2 months on, the letter arrived. All of the 50 counted cells had 46 chromosomes. The karyotype, sorry, I've been saying it wrong, karyotype analysis by the Q-banding method revealed her sex chromosome constitution is XY. Karyotype is decided 46XY. I have androgen insensitivity and I don't respond to testosterone. When I was conceived, my tissues never heard the hormonal message to become male. So, this is a cis woman, a woman who was born a girl. She came out of her mum and the doctor was like, congratulations, it's a girl. She then grew up and became a woman. and very clearly did not have any biological advantage from male puberty because she is physically incapable of going through male puberty. She actually does not respond to the hormones which your body would create in order for you to develop into a boy or a man, which is exactly why in the womb she developed into a girl. So this isn't a case of she had testicles and they just didn't cause her to go for male puberty. In the womb, despite her chromosomes typically pointing in one direction, because of all of the other complicated web of things going on during development in the womb, she developed into a girl. As I was about to enter the January 1986 National Championships, I was told to feign an injury and withdraw from racing quietly, graciously and permanently. I refused. Good for her. When I crossed the line first in the 60-metre hurdles, my story was leaked to the press. I was expelled from our athlete's residence. My sports scholarship was revoked. My running times were erased from the country's athletics. I felt ashamed and embarrassed. I lost friends, my fiancé, hope and energy. I knew that I was a woman and that my genetic difference gave me no unfair physical advantage. I could hardly pretend to be man. I have a breast and a vagina. I never cheated. I fought my disqualification. Yeah, so I don't think she ever got an apology. If you want to read the rest of this, I'll put the link in the description. Horrific. This is just such a clear example of why just doing a karyotype test is meaningless. Like you're saying, oh, okay, yeah, this person is XY, and most XY people are men, and most of them have an advantage of sport over women. So that means we're going to ban all people with XY. Doesn't make any sense, because quite literally, the entire reason that she's in this situation where she is a woman who is taking a karyotype test and is being flagged as XY is because she doesn't respond to any of the things that would give her a physical advantage at sport. Like, just factually did not develop into a boy. Literally is more biologically incapable of being a boy than almost every other cis woman. If someone with XX chromosomes was, like, instead of grown in a womb, was grown in a test tube or whatever, and you gave them the right hormone levels and other epigenetic stuff going on, they could develop into a boy. For example, most trans men are able to take testosterone, and it physically changes their body because it forces them to go through male puberty, because their body responds to that. Because all humans, all X chromosomes, of which some people have one and some people have two or more, all X chromosomes contain the full set of instructions to build a man or a woman. So most people, when given testosterone levels of like a puberty, will start developing into a man. This lady cannot. So she couldn't even dope with testosterone or anything, because her body doesn't respond to that. So this is just such a clear, ridiculous result of these kinds of sex testing. And she was just literally just a normal woman who was good at running, and then because of the stigma, her fiance left her. Just ridiculous. So what we're saying is, when you're a girl who likes running, there's a chance that you might be randomly, she couldn't have known, just randomly, this will happen to some of the women who are forced to take this test. Randomly, you failed this test, you're now a man. You can't compete in sports, your partner's going to leave you, your friends will leave you. It's just so horrific. And now also, because of the international hate movement, the gender criticals, this lady shouldn't be able to use the toilet, shouldn't be able to get protection from misogynistic sexism at work if she then goes to work in an office or something. Just ridiculous. But it actually gets worse, would you believe it? So this is a story from another lady a similar thing happened to, but a much worse fucking grim thing happened. Annet Negesa, a middle distance runner from Uganda, does not know when she first caught the attention of the athletics officials, but the testing began in 2011. First in May, there was a routine urine doping test. In August, when she reached the semi-finals of the World Championships in South Korea, she had blood tests. I was wondering, why me? I didn't see anyone else giving 6 bottles of blood like me. I wonder. She never got the results and continued to train for the 800 and 1500 metres travelling to Europe in early 2012. Then in July, while she was in the final stages preparing to run at the London Olympics, her manager called her and informed her that she could not attend the games. He told me that they took my samples and they think they found in mine that the level of found the level of men's hormones are high. Okay, not the best quote, but they found that they thought that she had male levels of hormones. She told Human Rights Watch, and for that reason they can't accept me to run. She was confused and devastated. Of course. I don't really like sports, but some people, it's their life. If I had to take some test and they banned me from playing Pokemon cards, I'd be very upset. It's one of the most important things in my life at the moment, and running is to people who are trying to be world-class runners. People just gloss over this stuff. Of course it's fucking devastating. It's ruining her life for no reason. Anyway, her manager told her that the doctors from the IAAF, now World Athletics, had said she needed to go to France for a medical appointment. Negesa said, he asked me, you still want to run? I told him yes. He said, then we need to do this. They need us to do this and this. Initially, she understood that possible medical steps would involve taking medication. It was when she travelled to France that she learned about the surgery. A few days later, a National Athletics Federation official contacted her. The official warned her to be discreet. She said, don't move around, just stay at home, because they were fearing of the news, people coming to me and asking me why I didn't go to the Olympics. She stayed low and depressed for months. She told Human Rights Watch that a team of white male doctors and a woman nurse assessed her at a hospital in Nice, in France. Her European manager accompanied her. She described the hospital procedures consistent with a physical exam, an ultrasound, a blood test, and an MRI. She did not receive any documents at the appointments. She was told to visit a doctor in Kampala for surgery. In November, a local federation official... Sorry, this is really grim. I do need to read this. And her local manager took her to the Women's Hospital International Facility Centre there, where a doctor told her he would perform a simple surgery like an injection. She said, but she woke up from anaesthesia with scars on her abdomen. She didn't know this was going to happen, by the way. And discharge papers mentioning an orchiectomy, removal of internal testes, and listed a prescription for post-surgical antibiotics. She suffered headaches and achy joints in the years after. In 2023, they reviewed an official from the hospital where she'd had the surgery. She said she now complains of body weakness, which attribute to the withdrawal symptoms of the gonadectomy. The letter said they had been restrained from starting her on estrogen therapy, awaiting further discussions with the IAAF's medical advisor. After a painful months-long recovery, she began training again at university, but she never regained her fitness level, and the university cancelled her scholarship at the end of 2013. Her international manager ceased contacting her. Today she lives in Germany, where she was granted asylum. So, this lady, who was a girl when she was born, and grew up to be a woman, who was good at sports, they did a test, and they determined, you have failed. And they just did not tell her that they were going to do a surgery on her, a belly at all, like an injection. What the fuck? They cut her open, took parts of her body out without explaining what that meant to her. And then when you might not know this, if you're a trans person, you probably do know this. If you remove someone's gonads, so that is ovaries or testicles, or both, gonads are one of the organs in your body which produces hormones, along with your pituitary gland, and maybe others. But they produce the majority of your sex hormones. So they produce most of the testosterone in your body and most of the estrogen in your body. So if you just take them out, you don't have enough of those hormones to function and live a normal, healthy life. So people who have them removed, for whatever reason, cis people and trans people need to have hormones in order to be healthy. For example, I need to have hormones in order to be healthy, and it's fine because I am able to get hold of them. They didn't give her them because they weren't sure what the Athletics Society, the World Athletics would say. So they just didn't give her medicine. Like, that is fucking horrific. And of course she had muscle and joint aches and stuff, because without hormones, your body like doesn't totally stop working. You don't die overnight, but loads of functions of your body do not work properly. And bone weakness, muscle weakness, joint pain are things that happen to people who have this surgery without having hormones given to them. But yeah, like, they've ruined this lady's life. This is an example of like mutilation. When you hear all these gender criticals talking about trans people being mutilated, when trans people are voluntarily doing a surgery which they are informed about and know they have informed consent, and then they get medicine in order to live healthily and happily for the rest of their lives, that counts as mutilation. But when they're just picking up some random woman from another country and just doing a surgery on her without telling her, lying about it, saying it's just like an injection, and then not giving her the hormones, like, horrific. And this is the result of like a running thing. Like, for what reason did they ruin her life? They just see her as so disposable that they could just like cut her up and ruin her life over fairness in women's sport, protecting females. Like, fuck off. She was a girl when she was born. That, like, right, there is, whether we like it or not, some level of controversy to trans girls and women in women's sports, to some degree, at some levels. At the elite level, you could say some level of medical transition is required for some sports. I don't think you could argue that for darts or pool, but I think you could argue that for, say, sprinting. Or like the things that the two women we've just looked at do. Putting those aside, we're not even talking about trans women here. We're not talking about the grey area in transition. We're not talking about the fact that like going from a man to a woman or from a woman to a man necessarily involves going through a grey area, and where you draw that line is kind of arbitrary and it's a difficult thing to come up with. We're not talking about that at all. We're just talking about a girl or two girls who were just born a bit different and who happen to be good at sports, and arbitrarily, for no reason at all, a bunch of men has decided that they aren't real girls. They're not really allowed. They have fallen outside of the purity test of what a real woman is, and they're going to ruin their lives over it. Like, this is exactly where this was always going to lead. Like, attacks on trans people and saying what a real woman is was always going to lead to attacking intersex people. Always. And it is not going to stop with sex tests for women athletes and ruining a handful of female athletes' lives. That is going to happen. Some women at the next Olympics, or whenever next World Athletics thing is, are going to fail their tests and not get a femininity certificate, and it's going to ruin their lives. And they'll make a news for a day, and that'll be it. But they're going to keep going. Like, why would it stop at sports? They're going to be these kind of purity tests all the time. For all kinds of things. Like, maybe you can argue at the Olympic level we should have some kind of rules on trans women and intersex women in sports. Maybe you can argue that. Fine. But you can't argue that about, like, the local girls' football team for 11-year-olds or whatever, because they're just having fun. It's just their hobby. But they are going to start arguing that. They are going to start demanding genital inspections and, like, what is some poor girl who, like 16-year-old girl, gonna do if they start performing surgeries on her without giving her informed consent? Like, it's gonna happen. It's already happened. This was literally like 10 years ago. This wasn't like in the 1920s or some medieval times or some kind of barbaric past. This is within our lifetimes. We've already done the exact same mistakes. It's just going to happen again. We're just going to have to watch this happen again. It's going to ruin some women's lives. And you know what? If you grew up and you were slightly more masculine girl or slightly more like bullied for looking like a boy or all this kind of stuff, you might think, I'm good at sports and I like sports. I don't know if I want to risk finding out something I don't want to know. Something completely arbitrary and doesn't change your value at all objectively, but actually a bunch of transphobic, intersex-phobic people around you will devalue you because of, like, you're not going to want to enter sport, are you? If you just know that in order to get better at your hobby, you basically just have to roll a dice, and there's like a 1 in 250 or whatever chance that it's going to ruin your life, some people are going to give up before they have to roll the dice, aren't they? So, World Athletics can fuck off.